So for the benefit of the recording, I'll just start that again. So welcome everybody. My name's Professor Eleanor Robson. I'm the director of the Nahrein network here at UCL. And with me are my colleagues, Dr. Mehiar Kazem and Dr. Regine Mohammed Amin. Mehiar will be responding to questions in Arabic. He's just introduced himself. And I'm also going to ask Dr. Regine to introduce herself. So she'll respond to questions in Kurdish. Regine.
امکانتان باش بەڕێزان بەخێربێن بۆ وەبینارە کەمان ئەمڕۆ پرۆفیسۆر ئێلینۆر کورتێک لەسەر خوێندەکەی کە ئەلانەکرێ باس ئەکا بەڕێزان من تەرجمەی کوردی ئەەکەم و دوای ئەوە هەر پرسیارێکتان هەبوو بە زمانی کوردی ئەتوانن بەڕێزتان بیکەن بۆ وەڵامانەوەی بە زمانی کوردی. زۆر سپاس.
Thank you both. Thank you, Regine. So we're going to start while people are still joining us by playing a short video in English that explains our new research grant scheme. It is a little bit different to the ones we've had in the past. And then Mehiar and Regine will briefly summarize that in Arabic and Kurdish. So Zainab, would you like to play the video, please? Zainab, we're not hearing the sound. I think you must be muted. Would you like to start again?
Hello, I'm Professor Eleanor Robson, and I'm Director of the Nahrein Network, University College London. And I'm delighted to tell you about the Nahrein Network's new research grant scheme. The Nahrein Network's research grant scheme has been running for about 5 years now. We fund research into the sustainable development of history, heritage, and the humanities in Iraq, including the Kurdish region of Iraq. For this new version of the scheme, we'll be funding 5 or 6 projects every year. Projects will last up to 2 years, and we'll fund them for up to about £100,000, depending on the money they need for their project. All projects are led by Iraqi researchers. We're particularly keen to see more applications from Iraqi women. And we're very keen to see people who haven't worked with us before apply for the scheme, but also people who have worked with us before. So if you've had a project with us and you want to continue working on it, then tell us about why you would like to do that and what new research you will do. Now, all of our research projects must address at least one of our research aims. Now, these are in more detail on our website, but I'll tell you about them quickly now. First, we're interested in projects that help us better understand Iraq today. This might be through history or politics or sociology or anthropology, particularly how history and heritage and the humanities are impacted in Iraq today. Second, we fund projects that help local experts get their messages across better. That might be communicating to a very particular local audience or a national one or international. We are interested in projects that help heritage organisations their job better locally. That might be nationally with the State Board of Antiquities and Heritage, or very locally with a particular museum or archive or library or archaeological site. We're also interested in projects that help young people have better lives through work. This might be a specialist in the heritage sector or history and the humanities, or it might be using these disciplines for more general employability skills. We're also interested in projects that help Iraq move away from conflict to promote peace, justice, and reconciliation in various ways. And sixthly, most importantly, at the moment, I think, are projects that use history or heritage or humanities to address Iraq's really pressing climate emergency in one way or another. So who can apply for our grants? So you can apply to us if you're an expert in one of these fields, and you're an Iraqi working in Iraq. Now, if you're an expert researcher and you're not an Iraqi in Iraq, you need to find who is an Iraqi in Iraq doing that work and collaborate with them on an equal basis. So involving them in the research design project and in the publication of your results, not simply as an assistant. And the project you want to do must aim to create new knowledge through evidence, methodology, theory, that is research rather than just doing stuff. And the research you do must aim to directly benefit Iraq, including the Kurdish in some form or other, economically, socially, or culturally, for instance. So if this sounds like you and you want to know how to apply, let me tell you about that. It's much easier than it used to be. We've completely redesigned the application process. Now you simply have to start by completing an online form, what we call an expression of interest, before the 31st of October. It's about you and the people you want to work with, and why they're good at doing what they do. And tell us about the project you want to do, how you want to do it, and the benefits it will bring to Iraq. And then just wait about 6 to 8 weeks while our international team of expert peer reviewers assesses all the submissions and draws up a short list of about 10 projects. Then, on our expert peer reviewers' advice, we will contact everybody and let you know if you've been shortlisted, probably in mid to late December. Then, in early January, we will start to work with you to develop your expression of interest into a deliverable plan, budget, management plan, timeline, output, as well as getting all the permissions you need from your employer or your ministry, developing an ethical framework, a risk review, and a communication strategy. So if this sounds like you and you want to find out more, well, there are various ways to do this. Go to our website, read all the details on our website, and have a first look at the application form. Our social media, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, or subscribe to our email newsletter. Now, if you do any of those things, you'll find out more about the webinar that we're going to run on the 7th of October in English and Arabic and Kurdish. It will enable you to ask any questions you have about the scheme and how to apply. And once you've done that, then you can go back to the application form and complete it, submit it before the 31st of October. And I'm really looking forward to reading all the applications. Thanks for listening.
So as perhaps you can tell, that was a video we made a few weeks ago to advertise this event. I'm sure you have lots of questions about it. Please put them in the chat. While you're doing that, I'm going to ask Mehial first to summarize that information in Arabic, please.
Okay, I'll do a quick summary. Thank you. السلام عليكم. شبكة النهرين مشروع وبرنامج مرتبط بالقسم التاريخ في جامعة لندن، ومختص في التنمية المستدامة للتاريخ العراقي والتراث. أهداف الشبكة 6 أهداف ل يعني رفع المستوى الخبرات المحلية، فهم أو رفع الفهم الواقع العراقي بشكل أفضل، تحسين فرص العمل للشباب خاصة من الجامعات يعني، ورابعا الفائدة للمنظمات اللي تتعامل مع في مجال الثقافة والتراث، شلون نقدر نطور يعني المنظمات المدنية ومنظمات بشكل عام بالعراق اللي تتعامل مع التراث والثقافة. وكذلك الهدف الآخر معالجة الحالة الطوارئ المناخية في العراق، هذا أصبح موضوع مهم. والآخر هدف هو يعني علاج أو شفاء ثقافي ما بعد الصراع بالعراق. هاي 6 أهداف موجودة على الويب سايت تقدرون تقروها. في وقت الحالي لدينا 5 إلى 6 مشاريع ربما تتمول من حضراتكم، من 10 إلى 100,000 باون. الباون أكيد أقل من السابق، لكن أكثر شيء 100,000 باون. وأكو اختيار، أكو لجنة اللي تختار المشاريع المقترحات. في وقت الحالي عندنا 3 مراحل. المرحلة الأولى تتعلق المقترحات اللي تقدم لشبكة النهرين، وكذلك أكو تركيز على النساء، بما في ذلك النساء اللي يعني في العراق في هذا المجال. تطوير المشاريع ربما يعني أحيانا المشاريع تقدم للشبكة النهرين يريد لها أكثر تطوير، فإحنا عندنا استعداد كشبكة نطور معاكم يعني المشاريع في مجال الإدارة وفي مجالات الأخرى تتعلق في يعني المخرجات، الإعلام اللي يتعلق بالمخرجات المشروع بشكل عام. في التقديم أكو فورمة موجودة على النت، فورمة سهلة صراحة، وكالباحثين أو العاملين في مجال الثقافة والتراث ممكن يعني إذا أكو فريق عمل جيد تقدمون من خلال هاي الفورمة. الفورمة هي صراحة هي باللغة الإنجليزية، وكذلك المشروع لازم يحتوي شخص، أقل شيء شخص واحد من العراق. إذا أكو مشاريع بها شراكة مع الجهات الأجنبية، لأن إحنا نتكلم عن 100,000 باون، أحيانا هيك مشاريع بها شراكة مع جهات خارج البلد. والنقطة الرئيسية في شبكة النهرين بشكل عام هي خلق أو يعني الوعي والمعرفة في العراق. هذا أصبح شيء مهم جدا، خاصة ما بعد الصراع والتحديات اللي احنا نعاني من عندها في البلد. يعني صناعة الوعي والمعرفة في التراث الثقافي بالعراق. أتصور هو هذا اللي عندي، يعني هو المواضيع، لكن احنا نقدر يعني نجاوب أسئلة. شكرا.
شكرا جزيلا. Thank you, Mahia. Roisin, do keep your questions coming in the chat, and do raise your hands if you'd rather speak, and we'll start to answer them once Roisin has spoken.
So I would just share my screen just to have some visual over your slides.
Right.
Okay. So do you see my screen? Eleanor, anyone can confirm?
Yes, we can see I can see my slides.
Yeah, it's your slide that I wanted to share, just so that I go over it in Kurdish just very quickly.
Right.
Yes. برایزانم کاتتان باش. پروفیسور إلينور روبسون برایزان سرتا خوی ناسان برایزان سرب بشی میجوا ل سانکو UCL و لهمان کاتا برایوبری توری نهرینا كلسانكو UCL بالتأكيد سركتي لسانكو UCL إما شيرة وكوها بريوري توري نهرين شرفي ترجمة كذني وبينارك يوم رومان هي سرتا بالنسبة أو كولا أو جرانتي كإستا حاليا بانجوازي وكراوة بيش أوا بغرين توري نهرين شيء توري نهرين بروجكت جينويكي بريش خاينا كتيايا أمانجي هرفيداني بردواني كلفوري كولتورو نيجوي عراق بحريني كردستانوا لم بانجوازيا طبعا بكام توجينوان بروجكت توجينوانش عادة فندك أواني كاريجري أبوريو كومالاتيو اقتبلين كولتوريان هي لم بانجوازيا كهيا أو بروجاني كفندك أوانن ك بالشريك بشي بين بوشش بروجة صالانة فندك تاو كماوتي أكيد 2 سال بری فندکش لنیوان 10,000 بو 6,000 پوند دایا که اکید بلین پروژه کان پروپوزال کان لو بینیابید پروژه تیجینو کان با طبیعت ابید تجارتی تجار سرکیه کانی ابا بلیانی ایبن برای و اساسی کان تجاری عراقی بن یاخد بجاری فکری بجاری هی راستی فعلی تجاری عراقی بتایبتی جنان يعني في أي جنان زور تركيز أخذت السريبة تايبتي لما بانغازي مجارية هاني أو جنة تجران أي العراق باقي هذا من كردستان شوا هدف كانيش أشكي أو برزانة عن كبيشتر فندي توري نهريني ورقتوا أوانيش مثلا ببردانيان دي رفض مكان يا بيدوكي تازة بيبطوان الأوانيش مستفيد من الفند كان أو فنداني أو بروجاني كتوري نهرين فندي أكا كامانا أوانا كبيريستا ربطي عن هبه بأمان جاكاني توري نهرينو أمان جاكاني تشين يكم أمان جان أوي كزيادة بتواني لواقع حالتي بقيت بوي كآية للعلم يجوي للعلم سياسي للعلم كالفوري بي للعلم سوسيولوجي بي أمروف ناسي يارمتي بالو زاوية وسيري أو بركداني لجو كالفوري كالتورة بقيت هاوي كشام بأودي كيان لبقلين تجري هي محلية ويت بلين بني بقعد بلين بجيهان لس رجعي أوي تجينا وكاني بلاوكات أو تجينا وكاني برفعان كا أوش كيف ترى الأمان جكاني توري نهرين ويكي كتير الأمان جكاني ويا هاوكاري دزجا كلفوريا كان كزيادة طوال خدمتي كموضوع كان ليسينا خويا كان أو دزجانا لسراسي مثلا نتوي لسراسي دولتي بيه ياخذ لسراسي ناوخوي محلي بيبون ملوك موزخانه وهاي هي الأمان جكاني توري نهرين هاوكاري كبني جنجانا لو يكبطان الكاردوز لو طوال هلي كاردوز كنبواري مثلا يجو أبوار إنساني كنبولي كلتوري أبواراني تفكيرون ديدارة كان وهروها هاوكاري كومالغا كان دواي نزاع لتشيا لبدس هناني أشتن داكتر وليو يعني reconciliation وقوله تفاعل هو reconciliation باسكي كرديين بيرجعوا so I'm trying to look for the Kurdish word of reconciliation but generally speaking بس يعني بشيء بشيء يعني ويك أشتواي كاتك كومالغايك أديته أو أشتواي درست بيت وأي كشيان بتايبتي زور تركيزي لسر المقالة أو أي مسألة climate change العراق قران كاري كشوها أو بوار تيجيناني كبوار مروفايتي وبوار زانستا كومالاتي كان كبتوان فرقيداني تاكري وربط كريتو بمسألة قران كاري كشوها كي أطواني بيشكشكا أو برزانة ك تجرن العراق يا تجر العراقي كالعراق إشكات بهريمي كردستان شوا ياخذ أو تجراني كبلاني كمو يك عراقي كابيت بتايبتي بتأزياتيش إيش وعراقا بكو برزان بيش الأماشي بيك البروفيسور إلينور كبين سكا أو بجداري بيكنا بجداري كراستقينا بين تنها بكونا وكارنيانك بلكو بجداري بهم ديزاين كدني ريسيرش كوتا وكوناغي بلاو كدنوا هروها بليس بروجيكت هول بعد معرفة تازة دروسكا سودي هبي بو عراق بهريمي كردستان شو يعني يكي كلانا أبو أجر برستان أو كستان وأطعم بيشكش كان لو أو شك مرجعنا تانتي أو أتاني بيشكش كان بروسيس كإستازور أسان تركلاوة أطعم فورميكي أونلاين بيشكش كي كيش سيكي ما يعني تاو سيكي ما ندير لاينة كي كتير را أسان كلاو بروسيس كذا بس أول يعني جناب تانكين في مكتية وبروجكت شيء وشون سود أجينيا يعني أو معلومات السريكيانية وأكيد كادو أول كان هفتيك وأصلا مسرتها وخلصنا جاني بوكي ولاين ليجني بسبورة بلين كإكسبرتين ودولتين بسبورة لمسألة تقديم كدنا أم ناهرين دو أول شورت ليست كان عادة نماني دونزا أجادارك هنا بلا أو كساني كشورت ليست كده تقريبا كذا بروجكت كيزنا كان ناهرين بلين تفاصيل بوجو شون إدارة البروجكت أو تايم لاين مستخرجات بروجكت مثلا استيقاظ بس كافية بلين بشي بروجكت باسكي دوي أقدر كنول لمان يكاتي مكان من لقو أو برزاني كالشورت ليست راوند إيش أكابو أو يطفان بروجيكي ديرو تسلسل كابريكا بوقونا غيواتي كيش كذن وزاني أريد زيادة دباري أو مرجكاني كشمولي أو كسان أكاد برزان فانتأكد أكيد الويب سايتي توري نهرين سيكي يا متابعي السوشيال ميديا تويتر وياخذ بون نيوزلتر كيا بجدار بنتي توري نهرين يا أو كورستان أموال ويبيناري أمرويان أطلعن بسعر كان بزمان إنجليزي كردي وعربي هذا أشخاص. Thank you. Back to you, Eleanor.
Just pass, Rajin. Thank you. So we've got lots of questions coming up already. I can see some in English in the chat, which I will answer. If you would like to type or speak in another language, feel free to do that too. Well, let me start with the ones in English in the chat. So Ivan asks, can an employee of the Iraqi State Board of Antiquities and Heritage apply? Yes, you absolutely can, but you will, for all applications, we need, if applications are shortlisted, at that point we will ask you to supply evidence that your employer approves of you doing this work, whether it's part of your job or supplementary to it, as long as they know that it's happening. So just be aware of that. We will be asking for letters for shortlisted projects. And I'll also answer your second questions, Ivan. Can we fund projects that are also funded by other institutions? In some contexts, yes, if you make a very clear case about why the funding you have received isn't enough, we won't double fund a project, but if you started work funded by somebody else and realize you want to do something more that fits within our research aims, then we will consider it, but we will never fund projects that already have full funding. I want to stress though, before we go further, that all the work we fund has to be research work. It has to lead to new knowledge and publication. We don't simply fund activities. And it has to contribute to the good of Iraq. So we've already received some applications, one of which was really interesting, but it wasn't related to history or heritage or the past, so we can't fund it. One that we've received already is really interesting, but it doesn't produce research, so we can't fund it. Another one looks really interesting, but it doesn't have any social or economic or cultural benefit for Iraq, so we won't fund it. So they must have all of these three elements. That's really important. So that relates to Maha's question. Do we fund Iraqi researchers for Europe who work in European institutes? We will fund anybody who works in a European or an international institute, but they must be working with Iraqis in Iraq who are also involved in the research of the project. Because this whole scheme, our funding is all about supporting Iraqi researchers in Iraq. So if you're working with non-Iraqis in Iraq, that doesn't count either. And when I say Iraq, of course, I mean the Kurdish region of Iraq as well. I will, Naji's question, I will leave to Mehia to answer, because I think that's perhaps related to the way you spoke.
Shall I answer that one?
Please.
عفوا أستاذ نجيح. هو الملاحظة مالتي كانت عن تطوير المشروع كديزاين كتصميم مشروع. أحيانا المشاريع ضعيفة جدا اللي إحنا نستلمها بالشبكة، فهاي المرحلة أو هاي يعني في وقت الحالي إحنا راح نحاول نساهم في تطوير المشروع المشاريع اللي نستلمها. إذا أكو فريق عمل جيد ممكن إحنا نطور المشروع مع بعض في شأن الإدارة، في شأن الميزانية، في شأن الأمور الأخرى، حتى إحنا حتى يصير أكثر فائدة لحضراتكم وللبلد.
Thank you, Mehia. I also want to answer the first part of Robert's question. I answered part of it in the chat. Robert asks whether we have priorities in particular subject areas. The short answer is no, we don't. We treat heritage and humanities very broadly, and we respect the priorities of the people who apply for us. So we don't prioritize any one community or any particular period of the past or any particular approach to the past. We make it very clear on the website at the bottom of that page that we are equally open to all proposals. So we don't exclude or prioritize any one particular approach. However, I want to say to Jamal, we fund research that thinks about how the past can help the present and the future of Iraq. We are based in a university history department, and our project is to support history, heritage, and related disciplines such as archaeology, and we've done some work with language heritage, for instance. So there's a lot on our website of past projects we have funded. If anybody wants to look at past projects, I will reply there. So actually ask, could activities for graduates that promote design thinking be conducted if they answer research objectives? That doesn't sound to me like, that sounds like training actually rather than research. And it doesn't really sound like heritage particularly. So it sounds quite peripheral to us. Maha asked, does it have to be teamwork from the start? No, it doesn't necessarily, but we'd need to know why it would need funding then if it was just work that you wanted to do alone. And then Jamal asked, could we share the form for writing the proposal? Yes, absolutely. And actually what I want to do, I think at some point when we finished the current questions, is show you the application form and talk through it. Other questions at the moment. Naji, your hand has been up for a while. Do you want to ask your question, or did we ask it? Was it the same question as you typed? Okay, I am going to share my screen now, and let's look at the website and the application form. And then perhaps it might be helpful if Mehia and Regine also said a few words in Arabic and Kurdish about it. Okay, so let me share the screen now. And let me share. So you can see our homepage, so it's ucl.uk/Nahrein, and right in the middle there's a link to our research grants scheme. So if we click on that, you will get a full long page describing what we've just said in the video. A little bit more detail on eligibility and eligible costs, a little bit more description of exactly what happens in the process, and how we choose the projects. And you can watch the video again if you want. And at the bottom is this important statement that I mentioned to Robert about equal opportunities and not playing favourites with one type of project or another. So now let's look at the form. So the form is due by the end of October. You can't write any more than 500 words, but please try to at least write more than one sentence. If you just write one sentence answer, we don't have enough information to assess your application and we won't be able to shortlist it. So it must be research, it must be related to history or heritage, and it must help improve life in Iraq. Because the form is long, we recommend that you just copy this, prepare your answers beforehand, and then cut and paste them into the form. So we ask about you and your employer or the organisation you work for, not in great detail at this point, but we want to know something about you. We want to know how to contact you. We want to know the name of your project. So these 5 questions are very, very short. Then we want you to describe in up to 500 words what the big ideas, the big research questions you want to address in your project. So give us some background if you want, tell us a bit about what other people have done, what's new about your work. Then in question 7, tell us about why you are qualified to do this work. So what experience do you have? You might have some publications. So this experience might be academic, but it might be practical, or it might be a mixture. And then if you want to work with other people, tell us why you want to work with them and what experience they have and what they will contribute to your project. Question 9 tells us, helps us to understand what's new about your work and how well you understand what other research has already been done. Question 10 invites you to tell us more about what you're thinking about doing, about the evidence you want to use, about the methods you want to use, and about whether you need any particular resources or training that you would like us to help you with. And then we need to know what will be the result of your project, how you will share the results of your work, both to academic readers, but also to the people whose lives you want to improve, or to the people whose ideas you want to change, politicians, journalists, whoever that might be. Tell us about that. You don't need a detailed plan, but just give us some ideas. We need to know how your work fits into the overall research objectives, the research aims of the network. So please tell us about that. Yes, and then tell us a little bit more about how you see your work improving life in Iraq. So Mahia or Rasheen, do you want to say anything about this? Would it help to summarize this?
I can say something quickly.
Yeah.
Just a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
الموعد النهائي لتقديم المقترحات هو هذا الشهر، يعني أكتوبر 31 بالشهر. الفورمة موجودة على النت، الرابط موجود. أكيد لكل مشروع لازم أكو اسم للمشروع، انتماء الأشخاص يعني لأي منظمة أو ربما جامعة، إيميل شيء واضح، التليفون، اسم الأشخاص المعنيين بالفريق العمل. وأكيد إحنا ندعم يعني ما ندعم أشخاص، ندعم فرق عمل يتعلق بالموضوعنا. أكيد يعني إحنا جامعة، لازم أكو سؤال أكاديمي للبحث، هذا شيء مهم جدا. وكذلك التحديات اللي تريدون تعالجون من خلال المشروع، التحديات والمشاكل أو الأمور الأخرى، يعني الهدف المشروع لازم يكون واضح بالفورمة. الفورمة لكل خانة أتصور أكو 500 كلمة، فممكن يعني قد ما أنتم تنطون أكثر معلومات يكون أفضل لنا للتقييم. المهارات كذلك لكل شخص، يعني كل باحث والفريق إذا مشتغلين مع بعض سابقا. هواي بها فقرات أخرى، إذا أكو بحوث مماثلة أو شغل مماثل، هذا شيء مهم حتى ما يصير تكرار بالمشاريع أو بالأفكار أو بالنشاطات. الطرق البحثية كلش مهمة، الميثودولوجي والأهداف، هدف المشروع، وكذلك المخرجات، هذا شيء كلش يعني شيء أساسي، لازم أكون مخرجات أكاديميك، يعني مخرجات أكاديمية وغير أكاديمية تتعلق بالأهداف شبكة النهرين. وكذلك مثل ما يعني لازم المشروع يكون من ضمن، أو يعني من ضمن المشروع مالتنا، البرنامج بشكل عام، الأهداف مالتنا اللي هي 6 أهداف اللي عندنا. والنقطة 13 يعني كيف المشروع راح يطور أو يحسن الواقع العراقي أو الحياة في العراق بشكل عام. وسبميت يعني فمو أتصور صعب، لكن إحنا موجودين لأي سؤال. شكرا.
Thank you, Mahia. Regine, would you like to summarize?
Sure. برزان بروفيسور إلينور بيجو بفورماكا برستاني بزمان إنجليزي شرحي في فورماكي كفرما أونلاين كا سرتا أوي دي خصو كديدلاين بوتش كشكدن وتاي معنا كاتكش حتى نشرا بستوسير كنجاونو GMT يعني توقيتي أخير كفورماكا دا آخر بو أزانياري برستان كات لهر خانة كا word limit يعني وش سنوري وشرط ينصى كلمة بەڵام بەڕێزیان باسی ئەو شکرتی پێشنیارەکەم تەنها جوابەکە هەرەوە نەبێ بۆ هەر پرسیارێک تەنها یەک دێڕ بنووسێت باشترە شەرحکرێت یعنی بگینا ناتوانین تەقییمی پرۆژەکان کینەکە بێت بە تەنها یەک دێڕ نووسراوێ بەڵکو پێویستەکە ئەوە نەزانیاری رابێت کە بتوانێت باسکرێت و تەنها ئەو پرۆژانەی کە توێژینەوەیە تەرکیزیان لەسەر توێژینەوەیە لەو بوارانی مەسەلەی مێژوو کە لە پووری کولتوری و بوارە پەیوەندیدارەکان بس كامل أتوجينا على توجينوي كيشنا بس شفنا ورافي بلاي مكتبك وبلكو توجينوي ككاريجري اقتصادي وكوملاتي وكلتوري هذه العراق وبحرين كردستان أو نوع بروجانا كفندكية وهروها برزان كيشنا ذيك تكنيكي كيف كلبري فورما كجون ديجو بلاني باش لقيت كيشتر والله ما كانت عندنا وورد دوكيمنت كابوي وش كان بلاي سؤال كان داني والله بنو دواي كوبي بيست كنا أو كيشنا بس يكبي فورماتش أسانة بس كان معلومات عامة ناوك لو رخاوة كيف رخاوة زانكوية كويلة لا إيشكي إيميل أدريس ورقم تلفونه بلايناي بروجكا دوای ئەوە زۆر گرنگێت بەڕێستان تحدیدی کەن چ پرسیارەکە چییە پرسیارە بەحسیەکە پرسیارە توێژینەوەکە ئەو کێشەیە چییە کە پرۆژەکەی بەڕێستان هەوڵەیە حەلی کات یعنی ئەوەی کە لە توێژینەوە پێڵێن مشکلی بەحثی يعني بڵین نەبوونەوە ئەو هەروها باسی شکێل هەمان کاتە ئەی بۆ وەڵامانەوەی ئەو پرسیارەیە حەلکردنی و کێشەیە گرنگە و پلانیش پلانێک بەس پێویست ناکات لەم قۆناغای پلانی دیتێل بەس بە ئام یعنی بڵین بەس ئەوە نەباسکرد بۆ پرۆژەکە چی و بۆ گرنگە پێویست بە پلانی دیتێل ناکا و بۆ دوایی لە قۆناغێکی دوایەوەی شۆرتلیستکرا و بەڕێزانەکان دوای ئەوە زۆر بەڕێزان زۆر گرنگە لەبەری ئەم فەندەکانی تۆڕی نەهرەی پرۆژە توێژینەوەن زۆر ضرورە بەڕێستان ئاماژە بەوە بکەن ئایا چ توانستێک یا چه ئەزموونێکتان هەیە کە پەیوەندی هەیە بۆ پرۆژە توێژینەوەی کە بەڕێستان پێشنیارتان کردووە چونکە نەبوونی ئەوە کاریگەری هەیە لەسەر لە کاتی خەڵسەنگارینا لەبەرەوە زۆر ضرورە باسیەوەی چۆن بەڕێستان یا ئەندامەکانی تیمەکە باگراوندتان پەیوەندی هەیە بە و چه ئیشێکت کردووە پێشتر لەو بوارەیە چونکە ئەوانە هەر هەمووی تأثیری هەیە لەسەر هەڵسەنگاندنەکە و لەسەر تەقییمکردنی تیمەکە لەسەر ئایا پێیان ئەکرێ فلانەی باشترین پرۆژە هەبێ بەڵام ئەگەر تیمەکە پێی نەکونجێت ئەوە پێی ناکرێت لەبەرەوە ضرورە بەڕێستان ئەو دروستکردنی تیمەکانان ڕاحەزەی ئەوە بکەن ئەو بەڕێزانی لەگەڵتانە ئابن توانستەکەیان هەیە کە توانن کارەکە بکەن و ئەشتوانن ئەوە پیشانن و باسی بکەن ئایا چ بڵاوکراوەیەکیان هەیە لەو بوارەیە چ توێژینەوەیەکی پێشووتر کراوە و باسی چ بڵاوکراوەیەک لەوەیە ئەوەیان زۆر گرنگە باس بکەن چ میتۆدێک مەسەلەی ئەوی لە توێژینەکەمە میتۆدی توێژینەوە بەکارهێنی یاخود با بڵم توێژینەوەکە و چ بەڵگەیەک چ نەوەی داتا و مەعریفەی تازە دروستەکە چۆنی تەحلیلیەکەی ئەوە ضرورە و چ سەرچاوێکی پێویستە بۆ ئەو شتەیە بۆ ڕاهێنانەی بووی توانی ئەو پرۆژەیە بەسەرکەوتوی بکەیت وەکو بەڕێزیان ئاماژەی پێکرد بە ئینگلیزی لەم کۆناغا پێویست بە تەفاسیلی ئیفێکت ریڤیو و ریسک ئەنالایسیس و ئەوانە ناکات تەحلیلکردنی مەترسیەکان و موافقات و ئەوانە و بۆ قۆناغی دوای شۆرتلیستاوی ئەو موافقەت توشتانە بکرێت لە هەمان کاتیشا پێویستە باسی بکرێت ئایا توێژینەوەکە ئینتاجەکەی چییە ئایا لەلایەن هەم بۆ ئۆدیەنسێک یعنی بڵێن بۆ کەسانێکی ئەکادمی و نەئەکادمی توێژینەوەکەی بەڕێستان بەرهەمەکەی چییە پێویستەکە باسی بکرێ و باسی ئەوەش بکرێت چۆن توێژینەوەکەی بەڕێستان ڕەتی هەیە لەیەکێک لەو 6 ئامانجەی تۆڕی نەهرەین و لە بەشی کۆتاییە باسی بکرێت چۆن توێژینەوەکردنی باسی لەوە کرێت شەرح کرێت چۆن توێژینەوەکەی بەڕێستان ژیان چاکەکە ئەوەکو باسمان کرد پرۆژەکانی نەهرەین فەندیانەکە پرۆژە توێژینەوە هەبێت کاریگەری ناو کۆمەڵگای هەبێت چۆن ژیانی کۆمەڵگا چاکات لە عێراق و بەهرێنی کوردستانەوە و کێن ئەو کەسانی سوودمەند دەبن لە ئەنجامدانی ئەو توێژینەوەی و مەسەلەی چاکردنەکە لەلایەن کۆمەڵایەتی ئابووری کولتوریەوەی کە بەڕێزیان ئاماژەی پێکرد تر دوای ئەوە فۆرمەکە پێشکەشەکە و ئەوە بکوتی ئیجا ئەوەستی بۆ قۆناغی دواتر و هەسەنگانی بۆ ئەگەر پرسیارتان هەبوو بەڕێستان بە کوردی ئیسانکردنەوەی زیاتر هەم ئەستا ئەتوانم وەڵامی وەڕێستان بەمەوە یا بە ئیمێل بۆ ئیمێڵی نەهرین کە پێشتر لە سلایدەکانات بوو ئەتوان پرسیارەکانتان بنێرن و ئێمەش لێرەین بۆ هاوکاریتان و لە ئێستا و لە دواتری شەهر پرسیارەکان هەبوو دۆسپاس. Back to you, Elena.
Thank you, Rasheen. So we've had a couple more questions. Both Maha and Zainab asked quite similar questions about whether about the potential topics of research. And I was going to say again, they must be related to the past in some way. So however important your work on climate change or on constitutional rights, if it doesn't center on history and heritage, then we can't fund it. We're not allowed to by the terms of our own funding. And then Maha Jasim asked the earliest date to start the project. That will probably be in the spring of 2023, because as you've seen, it'll take a while to assess the projects, and then we will work with projects individually to develop them. It takes quite a while. We'll have to draw up a legal contract with you. We'll have to make sure all the permissions are in place and that the financial arrangements are in place. And we will have to do some legal checks with your organisation that's receiving the funds to make sure that the people that have been paid are able to manage the funds. So that's also really important. We can't pay into individual private bank accounts. We do not pay private individuals. We pay organisations to do research. Maha also asks, should the research be based in Iraq? Our usual rule of thumb is that at least 70% of the funds must be spent in Iraq. We don't fund research that's primarily taking place outside the country. Rasheen, I think there is a question in the chat or a comment in the chat in Kurdish. Naji. You're muted, I can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. Mr. Najib is saying hello, and he says, I wanted to talk to you. So his hands up.
Hello. Hello.
مرحبا.
Hello. دكتور روشين أم كاتو باش سلاو بو هاوركان
زۆر سپاس سلااو بۆ بەڕێستان
ببوورە من ئەمە دوم چارمە بەشداری لەم وێبینارە ئەەکەم سپاس ڕاستی مەبەستم بۆ هەر بە جەنابیشت بڵم هەندێک جار شێوازی فەندەکە نازام بۆ ئەمە من دوم جارمە ڕەنگە خەتاکەش لە منەوە بێت هەست دەکەم جۆرێک لە ئاڵۆزی تێدایە یعنی تۆزێک کۆمپلێکسە یعنی ئێستا بۆ نمونە لە ڕاستیان من خۆم دکتۆرام هەیە لە HR Human Resource لە زانکۆی سلێمانیم بەڵام ئەمەوێت هەرچی ئەەکەم دەواازەیەک دۆزمەوە بێمە ناو فەندەوە لە ڕێگەی HRەوە بتوانم شتێک بکەین کە گۆڕانکاری دروستکە بەڵام هەستەکەم لە زۆربەی قسەکانتانە ئەو بابە کەم ئەگرێتەوە ینی فۆکەسە لەسەر ئەوانەی کە بۆ نمونە بە تایبەتی ئەوانەی کە تاریخەنیان لە کەلەپور و وابزام ئاسەوار و ئەشتانە ئەگرێتەوە خاڵێکم بوو خاڵێکی کەشم ئێمە هەر لە نێتوەرک لەم نەهرەی نێتوەرکە هەر بەشداریمان کردووە لەو عێراقیە یەکێکم لەو عێراقی کاڵ بژێراوم بۆ ئەوەی ڕسێرچێ بکەین لە ماوەی ساڵێکە نازام تا چەند ئاگاداری ئەویان لە میهێر پێی هەستاوە ڕاستی پرسیارەکەی من لەوەیانە
Iraq Publishing Workshop ئەوەی ئەکادمیک
خۆم یەکێکم لەوانەی کە هەڵبژێراوە خۆی ئەو وەرکشۆپە ئۆنلاینە و ببرەوانێ ناخۆش بێسە بە ئینگلیزیش قسە نەکەم من مەبەستم بوو ڕاستی بە ئینگلیزی قسە بکەم بەس هەر حەزم کرد لەگەڵ توا بگرێم سپاس کە هەڵبژێراوین ئێستا هەنێکیان ئۆنلاینە هەندێکیشیان فەیس تو فەیسە یعنی ئەبێت بچینە بە فیزیکلی لە شوێنێک کۆبینەوە ئایا ئەوان ئەو ئەکسپێنسە ئەجێرنەوە ئەو خەرجی ئەجێرنەوە کە ئێماچین بۆ شوێنیان لەسەر ڕسێرشارەکە خۆیەتی بۆ نمونە ئێمە داوامان لێکراوە بچین بۆ بەغداد مانگی 11
ئەگەر مەجال بێ بەش دکتۆریان پرسیارەکان هەم خۆی بۆ ڕاستێکی وەڵامەکانم پێ بەس حەزەکەم بۆ تەکید ئەهاوەکو بۆ مطمئنی خۆ تەکیدەکەینەوە بووی بە تایبەتی و مەسەلەی ئەوەی کە باسی کرد کۆمپلێکسە تەرجمەی کەم ئەزێتەوێ
بەڵێ دکتۆری وەڵام من هەر ئەو دوو شتەمە بوو هیوادارم ئێمەش خۆشمان بخۆم لە جامعەی تیشکیشم ئەو برادرانە باس جەناب دکتۆر محمەد چکار لە جامعەی سلێمانی من میلاکم لە جامعەی تیشک دەرزەڵێمەوە لەوێش بۆکو ڤیزیتین سکۆلە بەڵام ئێمە هەندێک هەر پرۆژە وردە و پرۆژە وشتمان هەیە بەڵام پرۆژێک حەزمانەکە جەنابەت لە نزیکەوە بینی بەڵام چانسی ئەومان نەبووە تا ئێستا
ئینشاءالله بە دەستەی کوردستانیم لە مۆلدۆوا بەخێربی گەورەوانەکە
هەواڵی وەشم پرسیوە زانیم لەوەی بەڵام ئەو جارێک ئێستا بە شێوازێکی ئەم ئەوەی ڕەپت بێ بەم وەبینارەیەوە ئەو دوو پرسیارم هەبوو ئینشاءالله لە کاتی ترا تەفاسیلەکانی کە باس دەکەین سپاس بۆ کاتیەوە و داوای لێبوردی شەکەم کە
ئاساییەوە خۆی مەبەستمان بووێ بە سێزمان بوو دەست خۆش. So I'm gonna translate this for. So Dr. Naji is actually one of the selected candidates of Mihiar's workshop that he's leading. So his first question was about saying, quite frankly, this is his second time to attend these webinars, but he finds it complex. He was saying that his background is from HR, human resource. He finds it complex because he likes to connect his topic with the kind of research that Nahrein Network funds, but he thinks that Nahrein Network is primarily focused on history, heritage, and archaeology. And I was going to reply, but I just wanted to make sure that I am translating his message, but just so that he needs to connect his topic with this kind of field. دكتور جان أو هربكو أو خوش مسلم والله بمو بس كيش هو حزم كر لبرهين ولبر برشاوني ترجمي كومنتكي برز إشتان كم إنجاز ساشم رشيدون برز يام فعلا بيس أكاتو بيكي برز تان رابط كي توبيك لواره معناه إنيا أما بلينا تواني توبيك كدرابط كي بس بيس أكات فعلا ليك لو زاريانا وبرز تان داخل بن. In fact, if I have Eleanor's permission to say. Eleanor's background, I remember in the past, she has a great book on mathematics was it Babylonian? It's something on interdisciplinarity. So the fact that how Dr. Naji can connect, I'm just saying the interdisciplinary, yes, make it possible that we can connect different topics, but as long as he has the links of archaeology, history, and heritage and the related field. Dr. Gani, and then his second comment, Eleanor, was about the workshop that Mihiar is leading. He was saying, so basically he has been selected, he's one of the candidates. Dr. Naji is associated with Kishk University as well as University of Suleimani. And he was saying that he heard about our works and he would like to meet. And I was inviting him to Kisar. It would be nice to also meet him. He said he would like to meet up. But then he was just asking for logistical thing about whether the researchers who are involved in that workshop will be reimbursed for their travel costs if they travel to, for example, Baghdad. He was saying that they will need to travel to Baghdad in November, something like that.
If I may answer that, sorry. So that is a separate program. That's a training program that we've developed as Nahrein Network. And as Dr. Najih knows, Dr. Arsoon is leading that. So, and he has the email for that connection. So, Dr. Najih, if you could email us on that email that we've been using, we can answer any of your questions, including the logistics for the workshop in mid-November that we're organizing.
Okay, thanks. I got it.
دكتور جان بالضبط دو برنامج يتجاوز البرنامج أما برنامج فندكانة كفندية وبروجكت تيجينوي تيم أوان براهناني تواناي تيجينويا. I will use this opportunity only to announce that you have also the 3 online workshops coming up. That's the one.
I think there'll be some publicity about that soon. Separate.
أيش يعني إعلانك؟ ليه بس هالأولاني يعني وبيونديني بمسألة نجو. I was just saying that has nothing to do with this grant call, so that will be announced. وبرز شاني إيميلك هير إيميلك إن شاء الله وتأنيرت بيوندي أو تفاصيل لوجستيكية بوشر حكي.
That's خوش بزور سپاس. Thanks so much. I appreciate.
Thank you. Reba, you have been waiting very patiently. Please.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Am I audible?
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. First, I'm really grateful to be here today, this evening, to directly meet you online and have our questions directly to ask. So yes, my name is Reber. I'm from Suleimani. I'm architect and heritage advocator, and I have just finished my master degree, double master degree in Germany and Egypt about the revitalization of the historic quarters in Suleimani, especially the Sarai Square was my case study. And my question is, yes, heritage is my subject. To be honest, is my main profession. So but my team is not only me. There are peoples outside Iraq. For example, one of my professors, she's from Syria. She also has a PhD about the urban design in Kurdistan region in Iraq, especially the camps and the forceful IDP camps. I'm sure you know about that. And also we have other architects and filmmakers. So we already have a few research and documentary movies and other things in this field. I would like to, or we would like to apply. I am their representative, to be honest, today. We would like to apply for the grant if there is a possibility. But the question is the limitation is only the research limitation, or there would be like a gate, or there would be an opportunity to the next steps like implementation or further activities like on-field surveys, or I don't know. Yeah, this is the first question, and the second question is it like mandatory for the application that all the applicants should be in Iraq based, or all the applicants should be the citizens of the country, or no, it is quite fine for the other peoples outside the land? Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Reba. Those are two very good questions. Let me share my screen again to just show everybody the research grants page. I have disappeared from my choices. Sorry. Yeah, let me just put it in the chat again. But it's says clearly we're looking for people either who, like you, work in Iraq and are Iraqi, or they're outside Iraq, but they're working with somebody who is in Iraq.
Yeah, great.
So if you have a team that is mixed, that's absolutely perfect. So we've funded in the past collaboration between an Iraqi and a Turkish academic. We funded a project between Kurdish and Jordanian researchers, as well as between Iraqi and British researchers. So that's all good.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. That's great.
And I didn't quite understand. You were talking about the methodology, I think.
Yes, exactly.
Could you just repeat the question?
My question is the limitation of the requirement. Is it only the research, or there's an opportunity like for further steps like implementation, not limitation?
We want the research to make a difference. So we want you to do research, and then we want you to think about how to apply that research
on ground. Yeah, great.
Change the world to make things better.
Yeah, great. That's great.
It might be a small thing, it might be a big thing, but yeah, exactly that.
Exactly.
So me that you're thinking in exactly the sort of thing.
We already have some, we think, somehow rational research, accurate studies we would like to share with you before. Like, is there an opportunity like to just share it with you or with the people who are interested in the topic? We have already shared in Germany, in Egypt, but to be honest, I am not well connected to my people in Suleimani or in Iraq, because my study was not in Iraq. But we already, like, what we did is quite like similar what you are talking about, what the grant is about, what the application is trying to look for. So I would like also to share the movies, and also we would like to share the researches. And then with this grant, we will have a great chance to further researches, maybe to complete what we already did it, or to enhance, or to make, like, as you say, to make it more rational and more applicable on the reality, on the ground.
Right. So question 9 in our application form says, tell us about any work you have already done.
Yeah.
So
okay.
in that part, you can put the links to your films or anything else you want to share with us, so that
That's
the
great.
reviewers will assess that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Great. So Dilzar has a question in Kurdish. Rashid,
Yes,
would you like to
sure.
answer that?
And so ما صار زاكيان برستان بس بوجود بسيارك كبرستان برسن ما جت تجينا كبشوي جروبير تجرب وانت بكنيا بوجود بيشكش بكار. So Mr. Zar is asking whether this can be done individually or should be team. So this is team based rather than ما وصل يعني زيادة طبعا فند project يجينا يفند عادة بوتيمة يعني سبسيتي تهيبو فردي وكو visiting scholarship كبلان سبسيتي فند كان عادة بو فند كدني project بتيم. So I was just also referring also Mr. Zar to the visiting scholarship, which is for individual projects as opposed to group, but for the funds are normally for groups of academics, for a group of researchers. Also, again, I get persiareket hadou fermu لشعبك as in the beginnings.
Zainab, perhaps you can share the link to the Visiting Scholars Scheme. We'll be opening that again once the research grant scheme closed. We don't run them both at the same time. So an anonymous participant asks about funding. So in the first stage, we don't ask people to describe their funding needs, but just be aware of the range of money we fund, essentially between $10,000 and $100,000. But we will work with each shortlist. We will shortlist about 10 projects of all the ones that apply, and we will work with them to determine what an appropriate budget looks like and what are eligible costs. But we do pay for people's time, but we won't pay for a whole salary, for instance. But we do think it's important that people's time is valuable and deserves to be paid. But we will work with everybody to ensure fair payments, and we will also establish very clear lines of accountability from funds, and expect a regular reporting and evidence of receipts and how money is spent. Haval asked a great question, which I think Regine is very well placed to answer, about projects combining technology and cultural topics. You're on screen now. It's one of the great experts in this. Regine, do you want to say a little bit about
Thank you very much, Eleanor. Yes, of course, Dr. Haval, it's a pleasure to have you. Yes, definitely. Actually, as Professor Eleanor mentioned, our projects are combining digital technology with cultural heritage topics. In fact, and there is an emerging field called digital humanities, and our field is within that, fitting in that digital cultural heritage. So definitely yes, but as in the past, we emphasize, it should have a research element. So it shouldn't be just technical research, but rather has some sort of research involved with it.
thank you. And Strand Star has a question.
Hi, Stran. I think you're muted. If you unmute yourself, you can ask the question live. Thank you.
Strand, would you like to ask your question? We haven't heard anything from you yet. Okay, it might be easier perhaps if you write it. Would anybody else like to ask a question, either by writing or by raising your hand and talking, Arabic or English or Kurdish? Okay then. So I hope that means that we have given you a very helpful explanation of what the research grant scheme involves. And I am looking forward very much to reading the proposals as they come through. So what will happen, as we explained, is that the office in London will look at them first and then allocate them to peer reviewers, international peer reviewers, who will assess the applications. So that's, and then they together will make recommendations about which will get funded. So I think we've answered the question about projects combining technology and cultural topics. I think it's very much, you can do research combining technology and cultural topics. Both Regine and I do this. Should we focus on one goal, like climate change? Well, I think I need to emphasize as well, it must be how heritage and history relate to climate change. So potentially, if you're interested in climate change, it could be one of two things: how we can learn from the past about how traditional lifestyles or technologies can be adopted or adapted to combat climate change or make life in Iraq better under extreme climate conditions, or it might be how climate is impacting on heritage. But it's not only about climate change. The research theme on climate change is climate, emergency and heritage. That's really important. Okay. Any further questions? Stran asks, thank you, Stran. Stran asks, is it okay for them to hold a BA degree or a master's degree? What's important, Stran, is that people can demonstrate that they're able to conduct research. So we understand very well that academic careers in Iraq are not the same as they are in Europe or America, and people are conducting research before they get their PhDs. But you need to be able to demonstrate that you have the right sorts of skills to lead a research project. So that might be your academic credentials, or it might be your practical experience, or it might be a combination of the two. But if you have only just received your BA degree, for instance, it's very unlikely that we will fund you, because there will be much more experienced researchers applying. But if you're an experienced researcher but don't have a higher degree, then that's fine too. What we don't do though, we don't use these. This scheme is not to fund research, sort of degree research, as part of somebody's PhD. So I hope that's helpful. Any other questions? Ivan, I'll explain that again. You don't need a PhD, but you need to be able to demonstrate that you can do research. So if you've been teaching or researching in a university, or you've been involved in through your work, for instance, if you work for the State Board of Antiquities and you're involved in field work and do research that way, then all of that is relevant. But we won't fund you if you're 18 and you've never done anything other than studying, right? So this is for experienced people. Is heritage and legacy sustainability eligible within the projects? Yes, it absolutely is. That sounds very much part of our work. Is there a specific time limit for the application closing? Yes, it's the 31st of October, and it will, if you miss this time, it's okay, because we will be running it again for several years. So if you need to think longer, we will still be here until 2031. We're not going anywhere. So yeah, there isn't a rush for this if you're not quite ready to think about submitting an application yet. And I would really encourage you to take your time and develop a good idea and submit it next year, instead of rushing to do a half-finished application this year. Only one application per person per year also. We will just take the first one. So, and that's also really important to stay. Great. Legal documents to be provided by a workplace related to being part of getting funds to support our work. So Maha, yeah, so once projects that are shortlisted, we don't want to ask for official documentation at the first round, but in order to for projects to be funded, there needs to be a legal agreement between University College London, where the Nahrein network is based, and the organisation where the research is based. So there will need to be letters, and there will be conversations with lawyers, and there will be what we call due diligence, checking that the people receiving the money understand the rules by which the money is governed, and that there is good governance in place. So I hope that's useful. Yeah, we're not just going to hand out a big pile of money. We are very, very careful and ensure that the money that we give is all spent appropriately. Okay. And yes, just to confirm, the deadline is the 31st of October. The scheme has been open since early September, so we've deliberately given people several weeks to think about the scheme before running this webinar, so that you've been able to ask questions. And it will be back again next year as well. And then finally, and then another question about funding heritage digitization. With a couple of questions. We do fund digitization, but not digitization on its own. It must be research. So if you need to digitize something in order to do research, or you're researching new methods of digitization for heritage, those are good things. But if you've just got a big archive that you want to digitize for future research, then we're not going to fund that. We have on our website, that page I showed you, there are links to 2 or 3 organizations that do fund this research. Not research, sorry, digitization, non-research digitization. Ivan asks if there are several institutions participating in the project, such as the State Board of Antiquities and Heritage and Suleimani University. You will have to choose which is the lead university, which is the lead organisation, and which receives the money, and then your project will be responsible for sharing the money out. How many papers do we expect to research grant to project? That depends very much on the scale of the project and what it's going to do. So we fund small projects and we fund larger projects, but at least one. But then also thinking about practical outputs as well. Are there any other notes about how to fill out the form correctly? This is why we've run the webinar. This is your guidance, and we've recorded it. So if you want to listen again to the guidance I gave, or that Mehia gave when we talked about the website, the web form, Zainab will, our social media person, will be sharing the video of this webinar, so you'll have a chance to listen again. Somebody asked, do we fund conferences? Generally, no, we don't. We fund new research. We don't fund bringing people together. But we do organise events where we bring the projects that we fund together. We had one in Baghdad just last May with our last projects. We had about 25 different projects presenting there. So there will be opportunities to do that, but we don't fund research, don't fund conferences. Okay. Well, thank you for your thanks. That's very nice. Do we have any further questions, or maybe Mehia or Regine, is there anything you would like to say before we finish?
Just looking if they have questions. برزان هاد أولا أجر بيت هاد السعر كان يطعنن لسبب نوع البروجا كانتان بيرو كانتان أطعنن في وندي كان بإيميل مشوري نهرين أو نهرين @ucl.ac.uk وأبو والله معنوي هاد السعر شكا هتان بيت يا استاجر هتان بيت أو فرمون أجر بيت طبعا فورما كوكو باش ما كتشتر شو كتاوة يعني أسان كتاوة وبيرو كانتانو يتر زوج باس.
Mehia, do you have any Final words?
شكرا جزيلا. I don't really have anything to add, but I hope we get really good projects this time. يعني I think it's an opportunity، يعني فرصة هي مهمة للباحثين في العراق، ربما مشاريع من داخل البلد أو بشراكة مع مؤسسات خارج البلد. يعني فرصة جميلة، وأشوف يعني ربما إذا فعلا تدرسون الموضوع بشكل جيد ممكن يعني تحققون شيء من خلال هاي المشاريع. وأنا حاضر، وأكيد الشبكة يعني موجودة لأي سؤال. عندنا الإيميل موجود. we have our email for any questions، أسئلة. والفورمة موجودة هسه موجودة، يعني تقدرون تشوفوها، فتدرسون الفورمة والأسئلة الموجودة. 3 مراحل. المرحلة الأولى هي المقترحات، وكذلك إذا يعني المشروع والفريق عمل يعني جيد ممكن يعني توصلون إلى المرحلة الثانية والثالثة. 10 مشاريع مثل ما دكتورة ألينا قالت، 10 مشاريع نمول لكل سنة. وهذا أتصور يعني هذا المرحلة اللي احنا بيها يعني التقديم في هذا الشهر، نهاية الشهر، هو مرة بالسنة. فدرسوا الموضوع وفكروا ما بيناتكم. يعني الشراكة مهمة، شراكة مو بس ما بين العراق وجهات خارج البلد، لكن حتى في داخل البلد، يعني أكثر من جامعة، أكثر من جهة. هذا شيء إحنا دائما نشجع هذا الشيء، لأنه يصير أكثر فائدة للمجتمع وللأعضاء الفرق. شكرا.
Thank you very much. We will finish now. Thank you for your very interesting questions. And we look forward, as Mahia says, to reading the applications and choosing the best of them. And I hope there are people here today who we select. And if so, I look forward to working with you over the winter to develop the projects. Do send further questions to our email account. And have a very good weekend. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody. Thank you.